If you are someone, sorry, I've been crying and I'm trying to get my emotions out because I need to vent. Long story short, me and my partner have been staying with friends of his for the last 3 months. They've told us we need to get out by the end of the week. We had a plan to drive cross country and go to live in Michigan. We're from Ohio. That's not that far from where our storage unit is with all of our stuff. We only came out here with the stuff in our car. And our person who was going to help us pay for housing fell through this morning. We have a week to figure out what we're doing, and I'm wondering how anybody in the current regime that is going on in the US is affording to live, is affording rent. If we were able to pay rent, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have driven cross country to stay with people. The job market is shit. I work in childcare. Teachers are paid shit. That's what all of my experience is in. And the job market in general is down the drain. If anybody else is this level of homeless, we could, right now, we're best bet is to stay in the car, but our car is full of all of our stuff, so then we have to either find somewhere to put our stuff, mail our stuff back, or do the $300 it will take to get all the way back to Ohio in gas and probably hotels. I just don't know what to do. I don't know how people are surviving in the current economy. If you have any assistance, I'm starting to reach the point where I'm going to have to put my Venmo in the bio, and so if I know people have gotten help via crowdfunding and things like that. I'm also a queer person, so I'm really trying to avoid. Half the reason we came out here is because it is a blue state. I am a queer person. I exist in the world. I recognize that I have a lot of privilege in being white and in a straight passing relationship, but that doesn't negate the fact that I would prefer not to live in a red state. But at this point, all of that has gone out the window. We're just trying to find housing. My partner does have a job lined up for January, but we are SOL until then. If you know me in person and you have a floor for us to sleep on in Ohio, we have a floor mattress. But yeah, everything has kind of gone to shit in the last 2 weeks. We thought we had everything figured out, and it turns out we didn't. So yeah, I would appreciate any advice. I also can add more context. If anybody has questions, I will be happy to answer them. I'm just talking off the top of my head because I don't understand. I don't get how people are surviving. Hello, this is an unexpected update because I don't even know if my vlog's going to make it out this week. A lot has been going on. So we had everything. Me and my partner, if you've been following my channel for a while, have been looking for housing. We found a place. We had somebody who was going to help us with the first month or two of rent because my partner doesn't start his job until January. And I do not have the ability to work short-term jobs because we are currently in Vegas and trying to move back to the Michigan, Ohio area because we don't really have another choice because he can't do his job here. And today our person who was going to help us backed out. We were supposed to leave on Sunday. It's Wednesday. So now we have, including today, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 4 days to figure out what we're doing for housing. We have the option to sleep in the car. We could make the cross-country trip. Where we were living before is not an option. We're currently looking at sublets. We don't have savings. And this story is unfortunately incredibly common right now. Especially TikTok. It's all over TikTok. Of how close everybody is to being essentially homeless. And we don't really know what to do. So I'm going to leave my Venmo in this video. I am trying to monetize here on YouTube. I've had this YouTube for 8 years. If you can give anything to Venmo, literally anything helps, at the very least, with getting cross country as we try and figure everything out. Because it's good. It's been a day. You can probably tell by the bags under my eyes. But yeah, this regime is ruining people's lives. Like, people are not well. And I know my situation is not unique, like, in any way, shape, or form. I know so many people who are either already homeless, already doing this, or very, very close to it. And a lot of people are doing without any support system, or at least not support systems that can do much about it. Because they themselves are too close to, like, bankruptcy or too close to homelessness. So anything helps, even interacting, liking, sharing, subscribing to my channel. Even if you don't use YouTube, please just sign in and subscribe. That will help. And I truly appreciate it. I hate having to film things like this. It's not good out there. This regime is going to kill people. It's been a weird couple of days. We've spent the entire last 2 days packing everything, deciding whether or not we're going to sleep in the car, if we can afford to stay in, like, the cheapest hotels, motels possible, while driving, like, 10-hour days, in the hopes that the trip only takes 3 days to get cross country. I'm thankful that we've had a handful of friends who are able to send some help. But we really don't know what we're going to do when we get there. So if you've missed any of my last videos, yes, me and my partner are currently homeless. We've been in a level of invisible homeless for a few months because we've been staying with a friend, which is why we came cross country, because it was the only place that could take us in. They no longer can keep us in their home, and we are not prepared to live in the car because that wasn't the plan. So we're going to go back to where our storage unit is, switch a bunch of stuff out, get all of our winter stuff, and see how long we can rough it in the car, unless something else comes up and someone's able to take us in. So if you're interested in the homelessness journey, I'm going to try to post regularly about it on here. Hello, I wanted to get an update for anybody who's been following along with me and my partner in our cross-country homelessness journey. We had a few friends, and I wanted to thank the few friends that have sent us money to get us cross-country. It has been truly appreciated, and we definitely needed it. We've had to stay in multiple hotels cross-country because we had a car full of stuff. And we made it back to our storage unit, got a bunch of winter clothes. So, yeah. We're back in Ohio. We still don't have anywhere to stay, but we have a few options of friends that are helping us try to find something in some sort of budget. So we're safe. We are back in Ohio. It's freaking freezing. And that's the update. That's all I have for now. Can we talk about how making a DoorDash delivery to Amazon, like an Amazon facility, is like Fort fucking Knox? Y'all ain't got nothing that important there. Be so for real. What the hell? Day, I don't even know, of requesting mutual aid. I'll leave them linked here. I have my Venmo. My partner has a Cash App. If you can message me if you want to be able to help, it's much appreciated. We currently have somewhere to stay. We have somebody helping us with a little bit of a week-long stay at an Airbnb, but we also have realized that, well, I've realized that I'm sick of Airbnb because they are never what they say they're going to be, or at least not the cheaper ones, because the situation that we're currently in is more of a hostel, and it does not state that anywhere on the Airbnb. There's like 5 grown adults, 1 bathroom. No amenities in the kitchen or anything. There's not even trash cans in the room. Like, we've been struggling, but we do have somewhere to stay for the next, I believe, 3 nights. We have to be out of there on Friday, and we're hoping that we can figure something out by then. We're trying to get everything fixed with the Amazon store right now, which is where we're at on that. That's where we are today. We've been doing DoorDash and Uber Eats for the last 3 days. That has helped a little bit, but as you might imagine, a lot of people aren't even able to do that right now. And with all of the SNAP benefits and everything not going out in November, everything is just pissing me off. Not even necessarily on my behalf. Like, am I annoyed that I have to keep, like, being in this, like, transient, I don't know period? Yes. But on the behalf of everybody who's been doing this forever, especially people of color, with black and brown people having to deal with this, and, like, food pantries and stuff, and food pantries are about to be swamped, I'm so angry on behalf of everyone who has ever had to deal with this. That we live in the United States of America and we cannot pay our people a living wage, let alone feed them, to the point that they're withholding food. Like the fucking Hunger Games. In a country with how many billionaires? I've reached this incredible point of just pissed the fuck off that any of us are having to deal with this. And I don't understand the people who are fucking on here making fun of people. Oh, why don't you just go get a job? One, tell me you don't know what the job market is like in the United States without telling me. And two, a lot of people can't. Even if the jobs are available, a lot of people aren't willing to work themselves into the ground, for one, for $13 an hour. And two, people just are not hiring. And three, disabled people exist, and people who have disorders or, like, any sort of diagnosis that could prevent them from working full time, they still deserve to eat. And yet our fucking president wants to build a fucking ballroom. That's my rant of the morning. I've been screaming about this for the last 2 days. I want to say I'm at a loss for words, but clearly I'm not. I'm just pissed the fuck off. And this is our third time being in Cleveland, trying to get all the bank stuff figured out so we can hopefully get the Amazon store back up that my partner helps run. If you've been keeping up with our story, sorry if my voice is raspy. I am mildly sick because we live in a house with 5 strangers in one bathroom. And by live, I mean somebody is helping us stay there for like a week. So we have a few more days there, and then we don't know what we're going to do. So if you're able to give anything to our mutual aid fund, this is a mutual aid ask. Partner and I are looking for housing for the next 2 months, if not 3. He has a job lined up for the end of January. We just have no way of paying rent or anything of that kind outside of door dashing, which is covering all of our other expenses, like a storage unit of all of our stuff, because we obviously can't lug all of that around. I've been selling some of my, like, books and items that I would rather not, but we don't really have a choice right now. And we currently don't have a home address, so even getting any sort of interim job has become complicated. So if you're able to give anything, it would be much appreciated. We have housing until the end of the week, and then we have to figure something else out. It's been a really rough 2 weeks since we moved back from the Vegas area where we were staying with a friend. I'm very low in energy, if you can't tell, and hopefully we can get a lot of this bank stuff figured out today, so we can at least get some of the income stream coming back in, because we've been flying by the seat of our fucking pants for the last week or so. For those of us who were in high control religious spaces, do you ever just sometimes go back and check on your old church or churches? Especially at times like this, where things like SNAP and everything is not being funded by our current government regime. And there's no way that they're not going to do anything about this or even mention it on their page, and there's no mention of it. No talks of food pantries. I went to a very, very white evangelical church, Apostolic Pentecostal, to be precise. And I made the mistake of looking at their social media, because I am no longer friends, nor do I speak to anybody that was there, because it is pretty much a cult. No commentary, nothing about mutual aid or helping any of the needy or the homeless in the area that I'm from. It's wild how common that is for majority white evangelical churches. And I'm sure a lot of them don't even know that that's a thing, because they only talk to each other. Because everybody else is of the devil. Just me, or your churches too? So I'm currently reading Cooking Up Revolution, Food Not Bombs, Home Not Jails, and Resistance to Gentrification. Because I am a fan of our local Food Not Bombs here in the Akron, Ohio-ish area. And this is reminding me a lot of, not in any way, shape, or form necessarily related, but it's reminding me a lot of that one Shane Claiborne book that I read. I think it's called like Radical Irresistible Faith or Irresistible Revolution, something like that. And it was about how he like literally became homeless. And I annotated the shit out of this back when I was still a Christian. I think my copy is literally packed in the storage unit because, again, partner and I are currently homeless. But anyway, it's reminding me of that book in the way that what he did in that book was deconstruct religious, like American American exceptionalism almost, in the way that a lot of churches don't help people. They don't help the needy. They don't help the poor. They don't do any of the things that they're supposed to do according to the words of Jesus, according to the red letters. And I remember reading it on my way to Congress, which is a huge youth event that we went to every 2 years in a different city. I think they've only started doing them in certain cities, but that's a story for another day. But anyways, it reminds me that I read it on the way to and from Congress. And I remember being at this event of like 30,000 like young people, pastors from all over the country, let alone the world, 30,000 Christians. And we didn't do anything in the cities that we went to besides go out to eat. We didn't do anything to help anybody besides like go to like small groups and like break off rooms to do basically talk ourselves up. And I remember being so disconnected from that Congress trip because I had read this book and it literally like pointed out so many issues within the American Christian churches. And to be honest, now years later, I realized that was probably a big part of the start of my deconstruction. Because I think I read it about a year into Trump's first presidency. And as someone who saw a lot of the ways some of the churches around me, not necessarily mine, at least they didn't say mine from the pulpit, endorsing him. But there were definitely people in the congregation and in other congregations nearby that were like, oh, he's like the godly president. And I was like, are we talking about the same person? And obviously it's gotten so much worse how many years later? But I realized that was probably one of my first deconstructing moments, like big deconstructing moments of this is wrong. Something is wrong. What I'm involved in is not what Jesus wanted. So I guess you can say that Shane Claiborne helped me deconstruct. He's the reason I have fully deconstructed all forms of religiosity and Christianity. Thank that man. Hello, I'm here for a very annoying update, and I'm hoping that it's coherent because I'm beyond frustrated. So I don't know if you've heard of Misfits Market. It's supposedly one of those like ugly produce store, like online stores where you can get like produce for cheaper that wasn't good enough for the grocery store. That's what they masquerade themselves as. I've literally heard other creators on here be sponsored by Misfits Market. I figured I would check it out. It was not upfront, in my opinion, of that it was a subscription service that literally is billed every single week. You do have to put your credit card information in to make an account. And as somebody who's had a lot of subscriptions to things in my life, I've never had something just pull randomly every single week without even telling you what day of the week it's going to pull. Like, they're usually pretty upfront about this. They are not. So, not only do they fill your basket, your cart, with $50 of like what they think you should buy, and I got rid of most of it, but I was curious about other things on the site, so I went through the site, found a bunch of stuff. I think I ended up with like $150 worth of stuff in my cart, and I was like, cool, that's a good thing to know if I ever want cheap produce or like very specific types of produce or groceries, whatever. Turns out a week later I get a charge to my account of $150 and I go, excuse me? So I go to Misfits and I cancel it. Actually, let me preface it. I tried to cancel it. The cancel button, according to them, disappears after a certain window of time. The fuck does that mean? Where is the certain window of time? So I ended up having to go to like their disputes and their frequently asked questions in dispute, and it was like, hey, I didn't make this charge. You weren't upfront that this was a subscription that comes out every week. You didn't even tell me what day it would charge me. How do we calculate that? And they were like, oh, I'm sorry, and we'll refund you. And so I dispute it through both my bank as well as Misfits. And then, and then they're like, okay, we'll refund you. Sorry, you should have known this was a subscription. And I was like, no, because you're very much not upfront about that. And you shouldn't have charged my card without like any indication that you were going to. When I've just threw something in a cart. I've literally never on my internet times had somebody charge me for something for just leaving it in a cart. And I was like, what the fuck? Anyway, I end up disputing it through my bank. Never heard back from my bank, which I did go and have a chat with them about. And I also disputed it through Misfits. They were like, okay, we'll refund you. 4 days later, I get a refund. And I go, oh, thank goodness. I fixed the problem. And so it's not even a pending request. And so it says I have this amount of money in my bank account plus the $150 because I was refunded, right? Right. I go through the weekend, I do some grocery shopping with the number of, which I don't know if you know this, me and my partner are currently homeless, so we don't have a whole lot of money going around. I will be upfront, I had like approximately $500 in that account, and the $150 was going to be for gas to get places because we're door dashing for a living right now because America's fucked. Anyways, I get the refund. We go shopping, we get gas. I think we went to Aldi, spent like $100. So in total, it was about $150. Thinking that I had this $150 because I was refunded it. And then it turns out after giving me the refund, they were like, yay, perfect, you're good to go. Come Monday, which is today, which is, I believe, a full week after the original charge, they just pulled both like transactions from my bank entirely. Like, you know when you go to a hotel and like they'll put a $100 hold on your card and it'll always show up as like negative whatever the hold was, and then they'll refund it back to you within like 5 days. Sometimes it's 2 days, sometimes it's like a week, and it's annoying. I've done that 1.5 million times going cross country with my credit card. So I know how it's supposed to look on the bank. And literally the entire transaction has disappeared. But my frustration with this situation is like, it's one thing if they canceled each other out. Then why did it say I had $150 in my bank total? Like, checking account total. That wasn't there. Because on Friday, I had, say, $500. Suddenly, after spending, I don't know, $150 over the weekend, the bank, when I went and talked to them this morning, told me, they were like, oh, you must have spent the $150 over the weekend. I was like, yeah, because my bank account told me that I had $150 in there on Friday because they refunded me. And when Misfits pulled both transactions, they technically canceled each other out, so that basically the bank was telling me the $150 was never actually in your account and it shouldn't have showed you that. And I was like, okay, whose fault is this? Is this Misfits' fault? And they were like, even the poor lady that I talked to, because I was so frustrated. Because to me, it looked like Chase ate. Sorry, that's my pancreas. They ate the $150, and they were like, no, technically, you spent the $150 over the weekend. And I was like, okay, because I had the $150 on Friday. But the way Misfits pulled this, I apparently didn't have the $150, and now it's all disappeared, so there's no way to track that this transaction even happened outside of my screenshots that the transaction happened, because I was so frustrated with the situation and the predatory credit card pulling. And of course, the one thing I do not have screenshots of is of the refund, because I was like, oh, I fixed it. So moral of the story, don't ever use Misfits Market. I'm very upset with the way that their entire business model seems to be predatory. I've also tried multiple times over the last week to try to delete my account, and it still says I have like an entire like monthly account. I cannot figure out how to get rid of it. It won't let you delete your debit or credit card without putting another card on there. It won't let you delete any of your information unless you replace it with something else. So, don't ever use this. If anything like this has ever happened to you, if you ever had any issues with Misfits Market, please let me know, because I feel freaking crazy. And the only place on the internet I can find anything about this is on Reddit, of all places, of people saying that they've had these issues with them, especially in the last 6 months. And now I don't even know, my bank even printed out my credit history currently, so of what they can see, and they see that the transaction has disappeared, even though they can see my screenshot that the transaction happened. They're like, yeah, that's weird. They shouldn't have done that. That's not normally how that works. We're at the mercy of the merchant. And I was like, then why was your number in my bank account different on Friday? I feel like it is kind of mostly at the mercy of both of them. I also know banks are having tons of issues right now with the current state of the economy, so yeah, that's my annoying situation with Misfits Market. And now somebody freaking owes me $150 that I apparently didn't have. That was a ghost $150 bequested to me via Misfits Market. I just wish they had left the transactions on there, because I've never had somebody just pull it, disappear. Even when you do that with a hotel, it will stay on your statement. It's completely gone off of my statement. Completely disappeared. And I can't get my fucking credit card off of their account because they won't let me. So either they delete my information or I get a new debit card. That's where we're at right now. Let me know if you've had anything similar happen. I feel like I'm losing my mind at the state of the world, and I keep not recording my crash shots that I'm constantly having with my partner. But as somebody who just moved cross country, who's currently homeless, who has had someone helping us here and there with housing, 3 to 4 days at a time, being back here after living in Vegas for the 3 months that we did, staying with a friend, we saw a lot of unhoused people in Vegas. But there's this conception that people in Vegas, there's obviously the stereotype, oh, they gambled it all away. But in this economy, seeing as many unhoused people as I do is actually too much for my brain and my empathy. And we're back in my hometown and my home areas. And even in the 3 months that I was gone, 3 to 4 months, it's close to 4 months at this point, there are so many more unhoused and homeless people in this area panhandling by PetSmart. And I'm in Montrose, if you're familiar with Ohio or Akron. I've never, in my 32 years of living here, in this general area, I live near Akron. I've always lived slightly outside of Akron. I've never seen this many people panhandling. And that's how I feel like it's such a big indicator of how bad everything is. And I feel so helpless because I'm also homeless. I can't really help these people. I can hand them a bottle of water when I can. But I can't even do a lot of the food pantry things that a lot of people are doing because I don't have a house to set up a makeshift little food pantry. It's, the more I see it, the more it's getting to me. And I don't want to do, but my brain is telling me I have to do something. And so I'm ranting on the internet. Thank you for coming to my TED. I'm reading this book about the 7 Mountains Mandate, and if you're somebody who came from high control religion, specifically Christianity, you might know what this is. For those of you who don't, the quick version is that Christians think they should take over the 7 mountains of life, aka the government, entertainment, art, business, all of those things. I can't name all 7 of them off the top of my head. But anyway, the majority of this book is actually about, I don't even know if we're allowed to say his name, CK, the person who left a few months ago. And I realized that this book came out on September 30th. Obviously, books are scheduled months, if not years in advance, or at least a year in advance of when the release date's going to be. But a part of me wonders if Matthew Bodie was maybe, or maybe people asked him, maybe now's not the best time to bring out your book that is heavily about that man and how involved he was in this situation and in Christian nationalism as a whole. When that happened on September 10th and this book came out September 30th. I am shocked this man has not been canceled. Maybe he has. But also it's very interesting. I knew more than most that CK was a bad person. But this goes in depth of just how awful and how responsible he is for where we are with the Christian nationalist movement. So if you haven't read it, highly recommend. Here's a small update for those of you who've been keeping up with our unhoused homelessness journey for me and my partner. We currently have housing for the next month in Detroit. But again, the person has been very wishy-washy with the helping, which I'm not going to get into that because I have opinions based on what I do know about them. But we also have a leaky tire and car insurance due this week, so we're struggling at this point to do groceries, get new windshield wipers, keep filling the tire that is leaky, which we need to make an appointment for, and figure out how we're going to pay for rent by December. So that's the current update. We are currently in a spot for the next month basically, but we're dealing with bills, as I know everybody is right now. So we're debating making vlogs and stuff to personalize this more, because we know that we're not a unique story. This is happening to a lot of people right now. Even if you're not unhoused, everybody is struggling with the bills. But that is the current update that I have for you. Any donations, any money helps. I always have my Venmo, PayPal. I believe he has Cash App, all of that. But yeah, Venmo is just my name. It's Haley_Hobson. If you need any of those, feel free to DM me. If you're able to help, anything is appreciated. We're gonna go try and spend less than $50 at Aldi, so we have food to eat for the next week. Because we're up in Detroit, so we're in a new area where I don't know all the pantries, which I did while we were in Ohio. So we're learning a new area on top of all this. It's been a time. Hello. I love the inevitable moment whenever I read about Christian nationalism where they've reached the point where they bring up CK of Turning Point. I don't know what this app is going to let me say as the person whose only content violation was because of that human being. But I've reached the point where they bring him up. And a lot about Turning Point and how it is a huge part of the reason that Trump is where he is now. And how it aligns with the politics of Trumpism and white nationalism, anti-gay bigotry, and other extremist and hateful ideologies. But hiding behind its tax exemption, it's stated as a charitable purposes, is a business that proved highly lucrative for Kirk, who at 30 finally may be aging out of the movement's youth contingent. I'm reading from The Longest Con by Joe Conason, if I haven't said that already. In October 2023, an Associated Press investigation of Turning Point USA's finances found that the group has raised roughly $250 million over the last 7 years, much of which has been spent not to educate young conservatives, but on cultivating conservative influencers and hosting glitzy events, which included a lavish wedding for Kirk at Scottsdale, Arizona resort. Kirk's personal compensation has soared to $27,000 to over $400,000, where he owns 3 luxury properties, including a beachside condo on the Gulf Coast and a new Spanish-style mansion on a Phoenix golf course worth nearly $5 million. The AP report also revealed the organization has doled out more than $15 million to companies controlled by Turning Point USA. He also campaigned for Trump in 2024, if you didn't know that already. Specifically in swing states for Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin for $108 million, an amount far in excess of what any experienced political organizer believes could be wisely spent on such an effort. And then they constantly mention that he dropped out of college and doesn't have a degree, and that's why it's weird that he constantly preys on college kids. And then the last sentence of this is, but he owned his vocation with the most grizzled grifters of our time. He will go far. Which, I guess, not anymore. But yeah, I love that moment. It has happened in almost every Christian nationalist book that I've read. I know I did a TikTok on, I read the Seven Mountains Mandate book, like a week or two ago, and that was mostly about him, and that book came out literally right after what occurred this year. This book came out last year before the election, so it's weird seeing a lot of this in retrospect of where we are now. But also, it makes so much sense. And anybody who claims that he didn't have anything to do with all of that, I beg of you to read a book. Thanks. Hello, I decided to make a YouTube compilation, so I'm making this for the end of that video. But I will also post it to TikTok because I realized I never gave a full explanation of what ended up happening. So, long story short, if you have been following our story, me and my partner were unhoused and homeless for the last month and a half or so. We had a friend help us try and find places. They offered to pay for first month's rent. It got very complicated. They claimed they were going to pay for all 3 months. That didn't end up happening, and that's a whole nother story. But long story short, my partner has been working his ass off with DoorDash and Uber Eats and all of that. So we were, or hopefully able, we should have the amount by Monday to pay for rent this month. So we're just going to have to work our ass off door dashing and like doing delivery services for what he has done this past week for this month, and then we have to do it again for January. And then my partner starts his job at the end of January. So we won't be as behind financially then. Fingers crossed. But yeah, that is the situation we are in, a housing situation. We're doing month to month because that's all we can afford. But we've been able to like settle in and everything. So currently housed, but still on the precipice of dealing with a lot of financial issues. So, and as I have kept saying through all of this situation, for all of this drama, through all of the hardships of the last month or two, I don't know how anybody is paying for things right now, especially with all the layoffs that are happening. Not a clue. I have no idea how anybody is surviving in the current economy that the regime is causing. So that is my update. I'm going to end this here and try to move on with other content, but I am going to continue to talk about these issues as we go forward, so don't worry about that. But that is the vague update for what has happened. We are not as dire of situations, and we are still a little bit behind on bills. A lot of payment plans have been added that are we have to worry about that later. A lot of credit card debt, but that's a later issue. So we at the very least have housing for the time being, and hopefully we'll continue to for the next few months. But thank you to anybody who was following and anyone who sent money to help. It was much needed and much appreciated.